Welcome all to this webinar about key new features and improvements in Origin Pro and Origin 2024. This new version was just recently published. My name is Ishwar Iyer, Product Manager, Origin Lab. I have a couple of colleagues who have joined the webinar as well from Origin Lab. Any questions, comments, please feel free to use either the chat window or Q&A window. We would love to hear your comments as we show features, and your questions are always welcome. So let me first head over to our website. Our website is originlab.com, and the latest version of Origin is always portrayed towards the middle of the homepage here. So here you can see the 2024 icon and the main message, dark mode has arrived. So that's the main, one of the key features in the new version. So if you click on this, it will take you to a highlights page. And for each version, we have highlights page created. So 24 is the latest, 2023B, 2023. As you know, we publish two major versions of Origin each year. So most of the recent versions are all here. So you can browse through to view what was added new if you are working with a version that's older. So in 2024, there are several key features. Dark mode support is one of them, as I mentioned, and there are several others. And in this webinar, we'll go through all of them. Again, your questions, comments are welcome. So first of all, let me demonstrate dark mode. Okay. Before I do that, I also want to give a shout out to the next webinar. So if you go to the support menu, you will see there's a training webinar page. If I open that, you will find upcoming webinars listed here. So after this webinar on new features, there will be another one today at 12:30 by my colleague Yiming Chen. And this second webinar will focus on statistical process control and design of experiment apps that we have added for OriginPro. So please feel free to check out that webinar as well. Okay, so let's start with dark mode. So I have a Origin project prepared, and after the webinar, early next week, we will share with you the recording of the webinar as well as the project. So if you come to this page under support, under training webinars, there is a button here for all recorded webinars. This is where you will go to play or download the recording and also to download the project. This would be next week after we clean up the recording and put it up. Okay, so here I have a folder where I have an Origin project created, and you can see a preview here already. So let me just double click to open it. And before I double click, I just want to point out that my operating system is in dark mode. So let me just open the operating system dialog, and you can see here I've set my mode to dark mode. I'm running Windows 11. Okay, so when I double click, Origin 24 will launch, and Origin will detect that the system is in dark mode, and Origin itself will start in dark mode. Okay, let's just give that a moment. So you can see here, Origin started, and all the windows, the interface, everything is in dark mode. Okay, so you can also see that all the icons in the toolbars also have been modified to make them look good in dark mode. Okay, now I just wanted to point out, if the OS is in dark mode, if you launch Origin, Origin starts in dark mode. But our dark mode setting is totally independent of the operating system. So how it works is that we have a custom toolbar that we created in this version called the dark mode toolbar. If you're upgrading, that toolbar may pop up in the middle of the interface. You can drag and dock it anywhere you want. If you don't see it, you can go to the tools, view toolbars menu, I apologize, and you will see there a dark mode toolbar that you can toggle on and off. Okay, so I'll go through details of this toolbar. The very first button here is to toggle the dark mode on and off for the entire GUI. So if I click on it, now everything goes to light mode. Okay, now if you set it in light mode, next time you start Origin, no matter what's the operating system setting, Origin will remember the setting. So for example, if you do not like dark mode and just want to always work with light mode, you can just click that button to make sure it's in light mode. Okay, let's go back to the dark mode setting. Okay, and here you can see that all of the elements, the toolbars, the project explorer, and as I click around, the object manager, the apps window, the worksheet, the notes, everything is in dark mode. Okay, now we did not stop with just one button for switching on off. We implemented some really neat additional features that I will walk through now. So let's say I look at my workbook and say I want my workbook to be always in light mode. So the second button can be clicked to toggle the status of a particular window type. So as you can see, I had two workbooks here. Both of them are in light mode now. So that button can be used to choose whether dark mode should be applied for a window type or not. Let's say you want to do the same thing with the graph, that you like the dark mode for everything, but you want the graphs to be always in light mode. You can use that button and set all the graphs to light mode. Okay. The third button allows you to change one window at a time. So if I click on a particular graph here and click on this button, it'll put only that graph in white mode. And this status will be remembered in the project. So if you share it with a colleague and they open it, they'll see it in that mode. Same goes with the workbook. I can switch one particular workbook between light mode and dark mode. Okay. Questions, comments, please type in the Q&A window or the chat window. We would like to get your feedback on this feature. We put a lot of effort into this because there were quite a few requests from users, and in our beta testing group, this was one of the features that had the most excitement in recent years. So people seem to really like this dark mode feature, which is why we put in a lot of effort. So let me go through and show several other features we implemented. One being that when the product is installed, under the preference menu, there is an option for, let me see, my WebEx toolbar is blocking me. I apologize. Let me drag it down a little bit. So under the preference menu, we have choices for dark theme. Okay, there's a button here to toggle dark mode as well. So in case you don't find the toolbar, you can come here and turn off, turn on dark mode. So let me switch to a different dark theme. We ship a few themes, and a user can create their own theme as well. There are guidelines for that. So I'm switching to the coffee theme just to show you there can be variety in the dark mode settings that you apply to the interface. Okay, let me go back to the default. Okay, now the way it works with graphs, we know graphs are quite sensitive. You would create graphs for publication, and you may care a lot about should the colors flip or not. So what we did with the graphs is that we did a few things. One of them being is that you can customize the background color of the graph. So one beta tester in our group, for instance, just wanted everything in dark mode, but the graph to have a slightly darker background. So, and not necessarily flip any color. So if I go to the color palette here and choose a somewhat darker background, you will see that the background color of the graph is darker, but none of the elements flipped. Okay, so for example, the equation here is black, all the axes and labels are in black. As you change the intensity and go to darker colors, Origin will catch up on that, and at one point when the luminosity crosses a threshold, it'll flip everything. So you can see here that the equations changed, the tick labels and the axes changed. So it's totally up to you what background color for the graphs you pick. And this is a global setting. Once you set it, unless you change it again, it'll apply for any graph. And when you open any project, if you put the system in dark mode, that will be the background color that you use. So you can pick and choose. Okay. Now, how are colors reversed in graph? Okay, let me go to the next topic here. So here I have a graph, a simple bar graph, and you will notice when I toggle between dark and light mode, the layer fill color is switching, the bar colors are switching, and obviously the axis labels and the tick marks are switching. The way we decided that, we wanted to give complete freedom to the user. So again, under the preferences menu, we have a dark mode color mapping menu item. If you click on that, it opens a mapping table. So we pre-ship the product with a table where we say for these light colors, switch to these dark colors. So as you can see, the light green here will change to a darker green. The light yellow will change to a dull yellow color, etc. Which is why when I flip between the two modes, you can see the colors are flipping. Now it's up to you. You can completely change this. You can delete these rows, add new colors that you want, and customize the color reversal yourself if you want to go that far into how the dark mode behaves in a graph. Okay, let me pause a minute. Any questions? I see my colleague is answering some questions. Please feel free to comment. I see a comment here saying from Chris that this is a really cool and useful feature. Thank you, Chris. Okay, let's go ahead and look at a few more options. So here I have a graph that if you notice when I switch between light and dark mode, the colors are not reversing because all of these colors are not in that table. So what if you say, I want every color to be flipped? So we went one step further, and under the preferences options dialog, under the graph tab, we have an option here. I apologize, under the page tab, we have an option here, dynamic color reversal. So the default is customized, which would use the table that I showed you, that you as a user can customize, but we also have other options. Flip black only, flip black and white, flip gray colors, or let's say flip all colors. So if I click flip all colors and then come here and change, you can see all of the colors are flipping. Okay, here what Origin does is it just uses a luminosity to figure out what is the matching dark color for the light color, and it switches accordingly. So it's up to you how to customize. And we spend all of this time on the graphs because we know colors and graphs matter a lot. And there was quite a bit of discussion in our beta group about what's the optimal way. And we just chose to go with the customized one, but we still give you the freedom to change to other modes of color flipping. Okay. Okay. All right. So all that's fine and dandy, but what happens when it comes to copy pasting graphs and also when it comes to exporting them, which is crucial because that's what you use Origin for, to create beautiful graphs and submit to publications and also use for presentations. So here I have a graph in dark mode, and let me just quickly flip to see that the colors, some of the colors have reversed. So under the preferences menu, there is an option saying copy page in dark mode like on screen. Basically means copy it as you see it on the screen. Okay, so let me go ahead here and do edit, copy page, and let me go to PowerPoint, and I'm going to go to a blank slide, a dark slide, and I'm going to do Control V to paste that object. So you can see that everything came through as it appeared in Origin. So the axes look white, the labels are white, and all the flip colors are visible, right? Now, if I go back and toggle this menu, preferences, turn it off, and then if I go edit, copy page, and then I go to PowerPoint, let me move this to the side. And then if I paste, you will see that it's copying as is without the background. So even though you see this virtual background here, remember that background is virtual. I can set any color I want. That's not really part of the page. So in this case, it's really copying the graph as if it were in light mode. Then obviously here, of course, you wouldn't use a dark slide. You would go to the design tab and switch it maybe to a white color slide. Okay, or rather in this case, I have to go to format background because I had specifically changed the background. So now you can see This one looks okay, but that one obviously wouldn't look okay because the axes were flipped. Okay. Any questions on that? We know copy, paste, and export are important. So want to make sure you understand how that works. So with the same graph, I will now go to File, and I'll go to Export Graphs. As you know, in recent versions, we created a simplified export graphs dialog. The advanced dialog is always there if you want to tweak more options. Let me open the simplified dialog. And in this simplified dialog, I can choose different image types such as PNG, BMP, JPEG, PDF, SVG, etc. Let me stay with PNG. So in 2024, we have added a checkbox here saying follow dark mode color. So then it would copy this graph as an image as you see it. So I don't need to export it because we also have this nifty feature of preview. So I can just click preview to show you how the export will look. So it looks exactly like the screen. That's a preview of the PNG. Let me close that. And let me come here and uncheck that box. And let's do the preview now. So now it's showing me the graph as if it were in light mode. So the point here is that you can leave the graph in dark mode to work overall with the interface in dark mode, but still be able to copy paste and export the graph as if everything was in white mode. So you don't have to keep switching between dark mode and white mode. Okay. A few more key aspects of the dark mode, and then we'll go on to the other features. So we debated a lot about color maps, such as here surface plot and contour plot. So in the end, what we decided is that colors mean specific things. For example, you may want the dark red to represent a particular value. So if I flip all the graphs here between dark mode and light mode, you will see the color maps are not flipping, but other simple graphs, such as a simple mesh plot with just a single color fill and a contour plot with different lines and background, those are indeed flipping. Okay, you can see those flipped, but the color maps did not flip. So we decided that based on our polling with the beta group, and we decided to leave the color maps as they are. Okay, and in this particular contour plot, you can see I have customized a particular line to be red, the value of 0, and you can see that did not flip. That's mainly because that red color is not in our customized table of mapping. So that color was left alone. Okay, so you have the choice to work with color maps as well without having the map flipped on you. Okay. Now the dark mode also works with dialogues. I just want to open here and the NLFit dialog. I already done a peak fit for this data. Just wanted to show you how the dialog looks. So you can see here is the residual plot, here's the formula, here's the sample curve, everything is in dark mode. Okay, then you can go to your parameters tab, do your iterations and look at the parameter values, bounds, etc. Okay. And I have several graph samples here. I'm not going to go through all of them, just to show that how the colors flip from dark mode to light mode. Let me pick one that has a table here. Let me see, do I have one? Graph with a table. So you can see here, if I flip, the table is actually an inserted worksheet, and that looks white, and the text is all black, and this is all in light mode. And you can see that when I flip, even the embedded objects, such as the embedded table worksheet in the graph, is also flipped. Okay. There are several other examples. We will share this project with you so you can look through those. Okay. Any questions, comments on the dark mode? If I can get a vote from you on whether you like it or not, would be much appreciated. You can put that in the chat window. Okay, let's move on. All right, some very nice comments from users. You seem to like it. So please try 2024, and this is our first iteration of dark mode, to be honest. So we would really love feedback from you. We already had an SR1 release to make some adjustments to the dark mode behavior. So if you have installed SR0, I recommend you get SR1. if you go now to get 2024, either as a trial download or as an upgrade, you will be getting the SR1 because the upload on the website has been updated to SR1. Okay, great. Let's move on to other features in 2024. Okay, so the next one is browser graphs for sheets. So let me quickly explain what we did. Now, in previous versions, if you do not know this already, a few versions ago, we introduced a concept called browser plot. Okay, so here I have a worksheet with an X column and multiple Y columns. It could also be X, Y, X, Y, some spectra, and I have some metadata here, composition of the material, at what temperature was the spectrum measured. So with this book active, if I go to the plot menu, we had introduced a new plot type called the browser plot. So if I go to the browser plot and if I choose one of the templates, it ships with a few variations. I choose the color lines here. What you can see is that Origin picked up all the columns in that sheet and it's showing me the long name. I can right click here and say, show me also the comments. So I have all the metadata right in front of me. So then I can explore. I can say, how does the curve look at 800? How does the curve look at 1200? And in this left panel, there is a menu with quite a few options. I can say auto rescale my Y. And let's now choose a few columns. Let me put this in light mode because this color choice may look better in light mode. So here you can see multiple selections are plotted together. I can even go to this menu and say stack them with an offset so I can really compare. So let me just click here. As you know, in recent versions, we added the mini toolbar for interactive customization of graphs. And here I can do many things such as show me every nth. So I can say skip to every 10th curve and click OK. So then it will, I didn't have too many curves, so it picked only 3. So you can choose multiple options such as that. You can also sort here. So if I click on the comments column, I can sort and I can then drag and see, show me all my 400 degrees centigrade and how that varies as a function of the composition of the material. Or I can click here and sort by the material and say for 0.2%, what are my spectra for different temperatures. So very flexible way of plotting and exploring data. And also there is a flip through here, which lets you flip through curves. So in this case, it's flipping through a band of 3, move by 2. I can also make it to move by 1. And this dialog also have an export option. Okay. So with the export option, you can even create an AVI video. So this is not new. This has been around for a while. So what we did in 2024 is we extended this to entire sheets. In the previous case, I was working across columns. Now let me show you how to work across sheets. So I have several books here with some multivariate data. They're all the same structure. They have the same column names. The columns don't necessarily need to be in the same order, but they just happen to be. And I have created a graph here, a multi-panel graph, a multi-layer graph with many different plot types. So here's a box plot, here's some scatter plot, here's a scatter plot with a reference line for a linear regression, here's a contour plot. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to see how does this graph change when I change from one sheet to another, just to explore. So rather than having to duplicate and create all the graphs, I can simply explore. So I can click at the page level on this graph. As you know, in Origin, when you click on different objects, a mini toolbar will pop up. This is context sensitive. So for the entire page, if I go to the edge of the page and click, I get a different mini toolbar. And in this mini toolbar, you can see there is that browser graph that I talked about. And right next to it is a new button, which is sheet-based browser. So if I click on the sheet-based browser, Origin will pick up sheets and show me on the left panel, similar to how it showed columns in the earlier case. So now I can click here and say filter that. and show me only sheets in this particular folder. Okay. So I have these sheets, I can sort them. So I have group A, B, C, D, and all groups. So now watch as I switch the entire graph, all of the panels update. So it's grabbing data from book 4 and updating my graph. Grabbing data from book 5, updating my graph. From book 6, updating my graph. So this way, I can navigate across sheets and see how my data changes as a function of whatever metadata parameter that I want to explore with. And again, here, the same concept. I can do flip throughs, and I can also create a video if I wish to. Okay? Questions, comments on that? I tend to speak fast. If some of the concepts are not clear, please stop me. You can put a comment in the chat window or in the Q&A window. All right. Okay. So next one is binary column. So here I have some test and measurement data where I have multiple sensors, and I also have some valve status, which goes between on and off. It happens to be some numeric value like 23.5 and different value for the on status, 23.8, I believe. Similarly, I have another channel here, which is on off, and these are analog channels which have continuous changing values. So if I make a plot of that, as you know, in Origin, you can select all columns in a sheet, and under the plot menu under 2D, there is a stacked line by offset plot, which is what I used here. You can do the same thing with the browser plot too. So here you can see a couple of problems, that the binary channel is not prominent, and if the other channels have large variations in Y, then the binary channel might get suppressed or flattened. Plus, it's not easy to see the clear on-off status. So what we did in 2024 is, if you double click on a column that is supposed to be binary or on-off, you can actually change the format to binary. Okay, then if you click apply, Origin will say, hey, I found two values, 23.8 and 23.5. I'm assigning the larger value to 1 and the lower value to 0. You can change that and click OK, and it will modify that column to be 0 to 1. So I already did that for all the two binary columns in this sheet. And now when I plot, you can see that the binary columns are the same height. So what we do is we take sort of a mean of all the Y ranges from the other channels and use that to scale the binary columns to be the same height. We also use a straight edge plotting plot setting for the line so that it really looks on off rather than a simple line connection. Okay, so this may be useful for test and measurement data. So please play with that feature. Next one, axis scale improvements. Okay, so here again, I have that same graph, multiple channels plotted as a function of time. If you don't know this, in previous versions, you can hold the Z key and zoom, okay? Or you can use the X key and pan. You can shift and hold Z and zoom in Y. You can shift and hold X and pan in Y. And these features already existed, but most users are not aware of it because it's not right in front of you. It's sort of a hidden feature. So what we did in this version, we did a couple of things. One was that if you click on a particular axis, you will immediately see these red dots at the beginning of and end of the axis. So they are right there, they grab your attention, and you can hold on to them and move. Okay, so it gives you a cursor. I can use my space bar to change the size of the cursor. I can use the tab key to change the speed at which the cursor moves if I have lots of data and I want to move quickly. Then I can bring it anywhere I want, such as say near this major tick and let go. It'll snap to that major tick. Okay, let's try that again. Over here, I'll bring it over here and let go, and it'll snap. Okay, if you leave it somewhere in the middle, of course, it won't snap to a major tick. And you can go the other direction as well. Okay, so this is for finer adjustments, if you ask me. Okay, same thing works for y-axis. I can do the same thing here. I can snap to 14, for example. Okay, that's one feature. The other feature we implemented is that if you go to the edge of the layer and if you hold the X key and click, you can see in the middle of the layer it's showing me the hand symbol. But as I go to the edge, it changes to a double arrow. If I now keep holding the X key and click my mouse left button and move left and right, you can see that the entire graph is showing me how it will change when I settle on a new axis value. So again, for example, if I want to snap it to this major tick mark, I can let go and it'll do that. So similarly, I can hold the X key here and do this as well on the left. Okay. So, and it of course works on the top too if I hold the X key, and it'll work for the Y as well. Okay. So please play with that. We hope this feature is useful for you when you're adjusting the axes to precise values, or you're exploring a large time domain data and you want to quickly zoom and pan. Okay. Questions, comments on that? Okay, somebody asked about upgrading. I just wanted to mention that for upgrading, if you are the owner of the license, then of course you can upgrade. But if you are working with the university or company license, then best to contact your administrator, your origin administrator in your organization, and ask them for the directions, because they may need to do something or they may roll out, etc. So it's best to approach your origin expert in your company. Okay, the next feature, as you know, in every version we published a few new graph types. So let me first show that on the highlights page. Those of you who came late, if you go to the originlab.com website, towards the middle, we always have a link to the latest version. So that's 2024. So if I click here, it'll open the highlights page. So you can come here and read details. So for example, dark mode, we wrote a very detailed blog. Okay, so you can look through the blog to learn all the controls and various aspects of dark mode. Our blogs are always technical and we publish them often. So you can come here and look for blogs. We often publish blogs on new graph type, both to explain the feature and also to promote the feature. Okay, so if I scroll further down, you will see that we have several new graph types in this 2024 version. So within Origin, you can always press the F11 key, which will open Learning Center. And this Learning Center is also on the menu from the Help menu. So over here, you can search by version. You can search 2023 and see what new graphs were added in 2023. So if I type 2024 and search, you will see these are the graphs. So if I pick a particular one, such as this, and click OK, what Origin will do is it'll append a project to a folder to your project, and that graph sample will be loaded, and there will be detailed notes on how the graph was created. There will be the data, so you can peruse the data and see how everything was put together. So this particular graph is called, the style of this graph is called tile grid map. So the idea here is you're representing some variable or a set of variables as a tile, and each tile represents one element, and that tile has a certain property. So this came up because one of our customers came to us, one of the users came to us, and they wanted to portray a periodic table and assign a different color to each element that represented something. Okay, in this case, we took an example of melting point, and the way the data is arranged, let me just zoom in a bit. As you can see here, there is a melting point value. Okay, and there is the symbol and some order here. And then there are two columns representing the position. So if I scroll way up here, you will see that hydrogen is position 1, 1. Helium is all the way to the right. So position x equal to 18, y equal to 1. Lithium is 1, 2. Okay, one row down, etc. So once you specify the positions of your tile and the variable, you can then create the plot. You can look at the details. I'm not going to go through the tutorial of the graph. So in this case, what we did was we took the value and used it just to color the tiles. Okay. Let me show you another example. This is a bit more complex. So here what we have is each tile is showing a temporal sequence of data. So this is showing property crime rates in various states in the United States from 1985 to 2012 and how it changed. So red is motor vehicle theft, blue is burglary, and the orange, apologize, yellow is larceny. So how was this put together? So you can see here that in this case, each tile or each subgraph has three columns. So here's Alabama, here's Alaska, and it's temporal data, as I mentioned. Here is the X, and those are the Y values. Then you can see here are the information for column and row. So in this case, because the data is arranged such and it's multivariate data, the column row position information is put into the parameter rows. As you know, in Origin, you can have any number of parameter rows and they can be customized. So here, as you can see, it's saying Alabama should be at position 7, 7, Alaska is at position 1, 8, etc. So this is showing representation of the US continental US map roughly, of course, but here is Florida, as you would expect. Here is Texas. So you cannot plot this kind of data on a real geographical map. So that's the case where the tile map becomes really powerful, because you can take multivariate information and put it into tiles like this, okay, and represent the data, okay. And for this, first you create a base map of exactly what you want from one set of columns, and then you go to the menu and say, I want to duplicate this as a tile map for all the columns using the information of position provided in the parameter rows. Okay, you can view the blog, you can read the blog or read through the notes on how to do it. Okay, we also introduced split heat maps. In this case, it's combining the heat map also as a tile. And one nifty feature we introduced is that this is actually an axis table. In Origin, an axis can be converted to be a table. So here this table has two elements. One is the country and the other is a flag of the country. So you can even take a small image and put it into a table to represent. This could be a molecular structure, whatever you want. In this case, it happens to be the flag. So that information is saved in a particular worksheet. Here is the worksheet. As you know, Origin worksheets, the cells can contain images. So a worksheet was set up with all the countries and the corresponding flags. And from the dialog for creating the graph, you just point to that sheet and picks them up and matches with the labels and shows the image there. That's pretty cool. Okay. All right. Next, here's just another variation. This is showing some gene data. Just to show that individual elements of the heat map can now be split rather than one square or rectangle. You can split it into two or more components to show multivariate data in a nice heat map. Okay. Questions, comments? Okay, someone was asking about shortcut for dark mode. So you don't have to always go to the toolbar. There's a control phi switch. So if I do control phi, I can switch between light mode and dark mode in a graph. Okay. There are several other shortcuts. The shortcuts are always documented. You can look up in our documentation. Next, new apps. So you may know that Origin has over 300 apps available now. So on the right side of the Origin interface, there is an apps bar. If it's not visible, you can go to view menu and turn on the apps bar. We have been publishing apps since version 2016. So if you click on add apps, it will open the apps center in Origin. Okay, maybe I have a dialog open. Okay, so here you can search. For example, you can come here to this search bar and say stats and search all apps that are pertaining to statistics. So you can see there are several here, and then you can download and install them with a single click. The apps have a requirement that some of them only work with Pro, and each of them has a minimum version. So this one requires minimum version 2017 SR0, which means any version at that or higher, this app will work. Okay, so every version we publish some new apps. So again, let me go back to the highlights page, and if I scroll down, there is a section here on new apps. So the star of the show in this version is statistical process control. Okay, and that's exactly one of the apps that my colleague Yiming Chen will be talking about in the next webinar starting at 12:30. And just to give you a preview, you can get a very detailed capability report, control chart, etc. using this app. So if I click on a book and launch the app, it has a nice HTML interface which kind of guides you to open the relevant sub dialog. So for example, if I want to do continuous data normal distribution and there is no systemic variation between groups, then I go to normal capability analysis. Then it'll open the dialog and then you set the parameters and go. And it'll create nice reports such as this. And as always with Origin, you can always click on the lock and do change parameters to bring up the dialog and change things. Yiming will be going through a lot more details. Okay. Now, last but not the least, in every version, in the highlights page, we portray key features that resonated most to our beta group and other user groups. But at the end of the page, we always put a collection of improvements. Okay, don't overlook this because there may be many goodies in here that may really help with your workflow. Okay, so you could read through those, and we will eventually we have release notes, so you can click on release notes and read details as well. I just wanted to show a couple of them. So let me show this multiple ROI feature. So here I have a graph with multiple spectra, and with the graph active, if I hold the control key, sorry, if I click the scale in button and then hold the control key, and I can draw a rectangle here to zoom into this area, Origin will create a new graph just showing the data within that region. That's not new, but what's new is I can right click and do duplicate, and I get another copy with the same dimensions, and then I can walk around with that one to another part of the graph and compare. Okay, so this allows you to not just two, you can do as many as you want to see variations in data across a certain X range without having to keep changing the original graph. So you have everything in perspective. You have the big picture as well as the zoomed in pictures for your region of interest. The second one I wanted to point your attention to was in a recent version, not new in this version, we introduced LaTeX as part of Origin. In several versions ago, you had to install MikTeX and you had to install some other component to add a LaTeX equation. We changed that by embedding LaTeX in Origin. So anywhere I go, I can right click and do insert, or rather go to the insert menu and say insert LaTeX equation, and a dialog will come up. You can type in your LaTeX expression, or you can pick a particular function. So for example, I go here and say Gauss mod and then click OK. That function will get inserted as a LaTeX equation. Okay, perhaps this was not a good choice. That's too big of an equation. So here I have a Gaussian equation inserted, but some of our users ask, they don't want just the parameter, they actually want the parameter value. So rather than just say y0, they wanted to show the value. So that's a feature we implemented. So if I double click on this, just to show you the syntax, there will be notes on this. We can create, I think we also have a blog. So there is a certain syntax on how to refer to the fit sheet and the parameter name and its value. So you can see value for y0, value for a, value for x, etc. So your equation then becomes more relevant, right? By looking at the equation, you can see the parameters rather than looking through a boring table of values. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. So again, going back to the website, if you go to the main page, you can click on this icon here to read all about 2024, watch some videos, read blogs, look at release notes, etc. I thank you for attending this webinar. As always, your feedback is critical for us for future development. We often send a product survey. If you see a product survey, please don't ignore. Give us your honest opinion. We like your opinion, whether you appreciate Origin or not. We are always looking for improving. So if there are areas that are deficient, we would like to hear your honest opinion so we can work on those areas and improve. Your feedback is always much appreciated. Again, we often run webinars. So there's a second one today. And then if I view all, we are going to repeat these two webinars also in January. So if you have colleagues who may be interested, please tell them to register as well. And in the main training webinar page, there is the recorded webinars, which is where you will come next week to get the recording of this webinar and also download the project file. Thank you all and have a good weekend, and hope to see many of you at the second webinar that starts at 12:30. Thank you.